Is it possible that the Voyager that was thrown into the Delta Quadrant by the caretaker is not the same Voyager that made it back to the Alpha Quadrant? Is it also possible that two different versions of Voyager made it back to the Alpha Quadrant? It took 23 years for Admiral Janeway's Voyager crew to get back to the Alpha Quadrant, and there definitely were tragedies along the way. So Admiral Janeway decides to travel back in time and alter the past to prevent the tragedies of the future. Changing one small piece of history is one thing, but now Admiral Janeway is off on a mission to change 16 years of history. Who knows the ramifications of such a temporal anomaly? Yes, of course, the positives of it that the Voyager crew gets home 7 years instead of 23, but at the same time, the ramifications are great in the timeline. There's a better way of explaining it, though.
Time continuum has been disrupted, creating this new temporal event sequence resulting in this alternate reality.
That is exactly what Admiral Janeway has done here. She has created an alternate timeline, an alternate reality. Alternate to her because it's not anything that happens from this point on is nothing that she will have seen coming, although she's got a plan and she thinks she has all the answers, and it does eventually get them home. But to Captain Janeway and her crew, it's all new. It's normal reality. But in a sense, it is an alternate reality, which is why just a few moments ago I said to you there would be two different versions of Voyager that would arrive in the Alpha Quadrant. Admiral Janeway's Voyager, and then we got Captain Janeway's Voyager. But that is not the real question I have for you. Alright, so we talked briefly about why and how two different Voyagers returned to the Alpha Quadrant. But what if they're not the original one that entered the Delta Quadrant? Is it possible that Voyager was already operating in an alternate timeline before Admiral Janeway went back in time? Now, if you are thinking of Captain Braxton from the U.S. Federation Timeship Relativity, and how they have basically tried to clean up Voyager's timeline incursions, I would have to argue with you that they did not clean up every single Voyager issue that occurred throughout their voyage through the Delta Quadrant. Case in point, Admiral Janeway's traveling back in time to alter Voyager's history. That would have been a major incursion into the timeline, but no one seems to have brought that up, and obviously the Federation timeships did not consider that to be a major issue. Season 4, Episode 8 and 9 of Voyager, Year of Hell, is one of my, if not the best episode that I believe the Voyager series has given us. And this is where I believe the problem began for Voyager and the timeline. When Anorex of the Kremlin Imperium built his time ship, he had no idea when he unleashed the weapon on their enemies the devastation that it would cause to his race, his species, and to him personally. It wiped out his entire species, and he has spent the last 200 years, him and his crew, trying to repair the damage that him and his crew has done. With major success in their latest experiment, they had it at 98% restoration, but that wasn't enough for Anorex because he wanted his wife back, and he was been feeling guilty for the past 200 years about the damage he's caused, and he's willing to continue inflicting pain not only on himself but on other species and his crew just to get a full restoration and his wife back. Voyager would spend the next year, after going through a temporal incursion, battling, fighting for its very life, as Krenim ships would continuously attack the vessel. And eventually they would develop shield technology, temporal shield technology, which they would share with other surrounding systems to protect themselves from the temporal incursions from Anorex's time ship as well. With the help of captured officers Chakotay and Paris, as well as assistance from the time ship's crew who are sick and tired of being continuously on a voyage that never ends, destroying cultures and lives, Janeway takes the Voyager and rams it right into the temporal ship. which triggers a temporal inversion inside the ship itself. And at the end of the episode, we are given the impression that everything has been reset back to normal. We even have an image of Emirates and his wife together, and we also get a glimpse of him working on the temporal time ship. So my question to all of you now is, was this a reset of the timeline, or did Voyager get thrown into another alternate timeline? And the reason I say it is because of two statements that were made in this episode.
In order to make the calculations required to restore Voyager, I need to know about some of your experiences in this quadrant. What species you interacted with, how other components were affected by your presence.
He needed precise temporal calculations to reset Voyager to its before timeline. In other words, he needed the precise calculations to reset Voyager back to the original state it was before all the incursions took place. Also, 200 years. He had been doing this with this crew for 200 years before Voyager even entered the Delta Quadrant. So when Voyager entered the Delta Quadrant, it had already been entering an affected timeline. See, this scene right here demonstrates to me, or indicates, that he never built his time ship. He was working on it, but he never built it, which means that 200 years of history was never erased. So, which timeline is Voyager now working in? The one at the beginning of the episode, where Annex has built his time ship and destroyed so many civilizations, or at the end of this episode where he is back on his planet with his wife and the ship has never been invented? Which timeline is Voyager operating in? Well, I just had this thought and it popped into my head, and I wanted to work it out and bring it out to all of you to talk about. So just tell me what you think about it. Give me your thoughts, your comments, and I'll talk to you soon, my friends. And until the next time, God bless.